much can Dereck Lively grow in season 1? Now, I know this was a question that popped into your mind, Corey, and I'm curious, what have you thought of him thus far before we get to how much better he can get?
So I think the thing that matters the least to Mike is energy. You know, like it's
okay.
That's one thing that I think everybody notices immediately, right? Is high energy guy, but he's a high energy guy with skills. And that's something that I'm like, oh, like this is something you can grow on. And I watched his body, Kevin. When you saw him in college at Duke, you could see that he was thin. You could see that he had a lot more to add to it. And that was every time we talked to Nico, when we talked to Jason Kidd, no matter what, immediately those guys were saying, we got to work on his body first. And that takes time. I mean, you look at Evan Carter. Throughout Evan Carter's stint at the end of the season, it didn't look like he put on 50 pounds, but it did look like he started to bulk up in his arms a little bit, and he still weighs, what, 15 pounds dripping wet or something like that? He's so tiny, individual, but he hits so good. And so like I knew that Dereck Lively was going to need that, and he's going to need those reps where he gets, you know, a shoulder in the chest from a big man, and he has to grow up from that moment. So I knew all those things. I wasn't expecting that draft pick to walk in and be a 20-10 triple-double or a double-double every night. But I wanted to see if he could contribute, and he's doing that. And there are nights, Kevin, where he'll walk away with 10 rebounds. There are nights when he'll walk away with a couple of blocks. And I'm like, man, his skill set around the basket, I think, lends itself even more to a potential 12 to 15-point kind of guy. Now, maybe not this year. And again,
also agreed.
You also have two very elite scorers on this team. So what he needs to do is just do what is asked of him within the bounds of this team and not try to be something that he's not right now. And that if I'm Jason Kidd and I'm Nico and I'm working on this group, I'm just saying in the future, maybe not this year, maybe next year, this guy is going to be a legitimate center in the NBA that people are going to want.
And one of the things when you were mentioning Luka and Kyrie, I also think Grant Williams being able to score a little bit better than anticipated. Derrick Jones getting more of a run, perhaps than anticipated. Tim Hardaway being solid to start out. Also inherently just cuts down on his points. I would be okay, at least for the rest of the year, if the vast majority of his points continue to be what you cleaned up in the paint. You know, because I think he has been very, very good on both ends of the paint, so obviously both defensively and offensively. I'm not saying he's going to stretch your defense offensively or anything like that, but if he can clean up the paint and the boards, that is going to be a phenomenal thing for the Mavericks. And I think it's already been better than most people would have guessed thus far.
One of the things that I've been loving that I've been seeing too is, and this is a reality. If Luka goes out there and gets a big play on the defensive end from Dereck Lively, and Dereck Lively hustles his ass to the other end of the court, and he's there wide open, and Luka's like, slow it down. I'm going to take 3 minutes to go ahead and get this shot off for me, and it's going to be a step back three that I miss. Dereck Lively is not going to want to hustle.
Right.
His desire to put that effort out is going to be, I'll jog it up court, and I'll be there with you because that's what we do. But instead, what I've been seeing is Dereck Lively makes a play on the defensive end, gets a rebound, makes a block, alters a shot, whatever it is, and then he's hustling back up court, and guys are looking for him. Hey, let that guy finish. Let him go ahead and get his too, because that makes him feel good about what he just did. It makes him feel like he contributed something to the night rather than looking at his stats and going, everybody's like, oh man, Luka got 42 tonight. And he's like, yeah, I probably could have gotten 6, man, or done something, but nobody was rewarding me for my defensive efforts. And guys, they can take pride in defense, but also they want to feel the ball go into the bucket.
I think the number one thing you're going to have to watch out for that could derail all the things that we're talking about, and this is something that we discussed going into the season. In the last 3 games, he has 16 fouls.
Okay.
Now you go back to here's
is that good?
No, that's not good.
All right.
Well, the good news is
feels like that's too many. The last 3 games, 16 fouls.
Correct.
And how many do you get?
6 per game.
He's almost fouled out.
Correct.
3 times.
Correct. Now the good news is the Mavericks have won all of those games.
All right.
So that's a positive. But here's the bad news. In the Orlando game, you could see it front and center because they had to drop the usage level that they had for him because he got into foul trouble. And then you look at the Clippers game, he straight up fouled out. And then in the New Orleans game, luckily they had that game pretty well in hand, but you have seen him rack up a lot of fouls really quickly. And here's why that's going to be problematic. First of all, you're going to see him on the court less. So that's problematic for like his development. But the other thing is, I go back to the game where he was sick against the Raptors. And Jason Kidd said, talking about Dereck Lively, we miss him a lot. There was no one in the paint tonight, and that just shows how important he is to our team. And so it's detrimental for the Mavericks, but then also detrimental for the improvement of Dereck Lively.
You said the last 3 games, 16 fouls. In the last 5 games, at least 1 block per game. And he had 2 in the last one against New Orleans. And you're talking about the just altering shots, just being a guy in the paint, not only the rebound part of it. That's important. That's huge. We know Luka can get 12 rebounds too, but if you can get 6 out of him, man, you're feeling pretty good on that night. But the blocks and the desire to be a guy that can block and take that on, and also say, hey, little guy, you're not coming in with that shot right now. You need to go ahead and kick that out to the perimeter, and then knowing that you have good perimeter players to try and help stall that. Now, I'm not saying, Kevin, that the Mavs are a good defensive team by any means right now.
But they're better.
Are they?
I think they are.
Okay, I just look at, like, I pointed this out yesterday. 100 points a game. There is not a single team in the NBA that is not scoring 100 points a game. And I think it's like 101 is the lowest. So that's even weirder. And it's early in the season. Those things can change throughout the year. But it just does seem like they want to be better at defense, but maybe it's more about when they're better at defense than it is being just a defensive stopper team.
And that's where I like Dereck Lively. There's a few barometers I would like to see him reach now that we feel – I thought he was going to be usable all along. But now that some people have been able to see that he'll be more usable than maybe you thought. I would love to see him get to the 10 points, 8 rebounds per game.
When?
By the end of the year.
Okay.
And so...
What about next year? I'm looking 5 years down the road, Kevin. Do you think he can be a dominant center in the NBA?
I don't...
Do you just want to see the growth from year one and then make predictions next year?
I don't know about that because a lot of that will depend on how his frame fills out and how much they do work on three-point shooting with him. Like in terms of the modern NBA and what you get from a center.
You're in the mindset then of it's never going back to, it's not going to be cyclical like the NFL.
I don't think it will, because even in the NFL, like I know running is up, but I don't think people go, well, this is the best running back, so they have the best team.
Mm-hmm.
So you've seen an uptick in that, but I don't think people are like, you better watch out for those running backs.
Well, and then when you have Wembanyama, who can also hit from 3 too,
and
it's
run
like,
the point.
Well, why can't you find more guys like that?
Exactly.
We'll grow them.
Exactly. So I don't think you're going to go back to that. So in terms of the next 3 to 5 years, how his frame fills out and how he does three-point shooting. I know if you go back and watch his AAU highlights, like he can shoot the 3. But go back and watch those entire games. You'll see some other three-pointers in that string that you're like, good night, what the hell was that?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I would love for him to do in the short term is I want double-digit rebounds at least every other game. Now, obviously, that will also be a product of can he stay out of foul trouble? Because you go back to the Orlando game, there's no way in hell he was going to get 10 rebounds with the fouls coming that fast.
Right,
and he still had it. He had a solid game, but he wasn't able to stay on the court because foul. So I would like to see every other game hitting that 10 rebound spot. And I would like to be like, you just take it for granted that he'll get you 6 rebounds a game. Like he'll just walk out there and magically you'll have 6 rebounds.
It sounds like a low number, doesn't it? But I
don't think so.
But it's a rookie positive thing too.
And the other reason I don't think so is because I'm saying every game. He just walks out and you automatically get 6 rebounds from him, with the expectation being 10 every other game. And by next year or the year after, now it might be low, but I think he's a double-double guy. It might be 12 points and 10 rebounds. I'm not saying he's going to turn into 25 and 13 and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing. But I think he can be a 12-10 guy. If you can get that guy who can also play defense, which he can, I feel like that's a revelation for the Mavs.
As part of the passing attribute of his game, how do you feel about what he's done so far? Because I do feel like what I've seen from him so far this year is the ball's in my hand. It's time for me to put it in the basket.
Yes.
I'm not a navigate through me guy.
If you're more than
which Jokic is.
Oh yeah, I'm honestly, if you're more than, I don't know, 6 to 8 feet out of the basket, he's not necessarily the person I want facilitating your offense. But one of the good things about having good hands and good feet is the ability to get rid of the ball and move to your spot better than some big men or some rookies, or however you want to put it. I like this. From the 8-5-8, I'm amazed at Lively so far. I was devastated on draft night, happy to be wrong, because now we can finally put away our annual trade rumors for Capella.
Hold on.
That's a really
Is
good
that not
point.
going to happen again this year where we're like, oh, here comes Clint Capella?
I can't rule it out. I just can't. From the 2-5-4, I want my big man living on the edge with fouls. No easy buckets. Just means he's playing hard on defense. And I do agree with that. That was one of the conversations that we had with Mike on the night he got drafted. I think he has an elite defensive skill set. That does not mean he is already an elite defender, but when you look at his ability to block or alter shots and how quick he can move, he has elite defensive traits.
Somebody did text in from the 858, Kevin, again, and said, take a look at how some of the fouls happen. Sometimes it's because teammates are getting blown by or poor defense in front of him.
Okay.
That does need to become a calling card of his, because that's something that Tyson Chandler demanded of the guys around him. I will communicate. You guys have to do your part too, and by the time it gets to me, I'll take care of business. But I can't be stuck in a bad position because you weren't playing good defense.
I definitely agree with that. And you go back to the Orlando game, which obviously he fouled out really early. I understand some of those fouls a little bit more because you were already losing. Just sometimes it sucks. Sometimes you have to make a basic equation in your head. Is giving up these 2 points worth me staying in the game?
Right.
And, like, that's tough. But you see it all the time when you give this kind of, like, Olay BS defensive effort because you're like, I can't draw a foul no matter what. So I think that person is right, and the Mavericks have to step it up still defensively. But Lively has to know some of those keys when it's like, I have 1 foul. Let's do this. Versus, I have 3 fouls and the third quarter just started. Might have to let this one go.
I think, Kevin, I'm probably on the far positive side about this. I do think there is a potential down the road, next year, a couple of years after that, for him to develop into, if, like you said, if his body develops a certain way, but on top of his skill set, that he can develop into a 15-10 kind of guy. And if you can get that to go along with Luka, and Luka has a big man that he can now play 2-man game with that guy, in addition to whatever Kyrie's contributing, you have an element that people have to deal with. And that's something that I'm hoping down the road for him.